Hello there. So Boris Johnson is going to crack down on crime and antisocial behaviour, is he? Let's hope he's not following the Priti Patel school of promising tough action and not delivering. But the timing is interesting, isn't it? As per usual, please like, subscribe and comment below. And why not buy a mug with my mug on it? And when subscribing, press the little bell, but also select the all option or you won't get any notifications. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has declared that he's now going to deal with our crime and antisocial behaviour problem. 11 years after the Tories came to power promising just that. We will fight back against the crime and antisocial behaviour that blights our communities, trumpeted the Tory 2010 general election manifesto. And it talked about putting the justice system on the side of the public and reforming the police, etc., etc., etc. So we've heard it all before, with little or no action once the human rights lobby have got their talons into it. The criminal justice system is very aptly named. It gives gold-plated justice to the criminal, usually at the expense of the law-abiding citizen. So why not rename it the victim justice system? But isn't it coincidental that all this is announced just as Boris rages at the young for not doing their double jab duty, and the government is also trying to get tough on jibby-jabby refuseniks? Anyway, Boris is now talking about chain gangs of miscreants in high-vis jackets publicly repaying their debt to society. How long before the Human Rights Brigade are talking about Victorian-style cruel and unusual punishments? Or that it encroaches on the privacy of the felons as the passing public get their mobile phones out for selfies with the rock-breaking convicted? Boris Johnson was at the Surrey Police HQ where he said that the lockdown had driven some antisocial behaviour which now needed to be dealt with. And he said that he wanted to see those who are guilty of antisocial behaviour properly paying their debt to society. And he went on to say that antisocial behaviour that is treated as a minor crime can be very distressing to the victims. If you are guilty of antisocial behaviour and you are sentenced to unpaid work, as many people are, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be out there in one of these fluorescent jacketed chain gangs, visibly paying your debt to society, he said. Great rhetoric for the Tory voting masses and the victims of crime, and it may become law. But one wonders if this will ever translate into actual action once the courts and those ever-present human rights lawyers get involved. Then there's his plan for every neighbourhood in England and Wales to be given a named police officer and their contact details for residents to contact. And the PM also promised to deal with that constant thorn in the side for the police, stop and search, where he said that rules introduced by Theresa May to make it harder for police officers to use Section 60 stop and search powers would be removed. I think that giving the police the backing that they need in law to stop someone, to search them, to relieve them of a dangerous weapon, I don't think that's strong-arm tactics. I think that's a kind and loving thing to do, he said. And he added that those that support stop and search most were the parents of children who had been the victims of violent crime themselves. And then there's the plan to extend the use of electronic tagging for offenders, with burglars released from jail to be forced to wear tags 24/7 to stop them reoffending. And there are even plans to introduce so-called sobriety tags that alert the probation service if the offender partakes of an alcoholic drink. And then there's the 999 and 101 emergency service call answering time league tables. So it looks like Boris has got the stick out. But as is entirely predictable, Labour and the soft lefties are condemning all of this. They say this will compound discrimination, and as usual they want to give the criminals carrots and not sticks. Anyway, looking at these proposals, they sound like they'd appeal to Conservative Party core voters and to those that live in certain areas of the country where the crime rates are higher. But I do wonder if they've not heard it all before. After all, is there anything in those proposals that hasn't been trotted out before, apart from maybe the sobriety tags? Now, one big stumbling block for Boris in all of this is the police forces themselves. You need to have them on side when delivering stuff like this. And just recently, the Police Federation of England and Wales, the PFEW, withdrew its confidence in the Home Secretary Priti Patel, and is now no longer supporting or engaging with the Police Remuneration Review Body after police pay was frozen. And I also read that John Apter, the chairman of the PFEW, has delivered an angry letter to Number 10 today demanding a total reset of relations between the police and government, as well as a U-turn on the pay freeze. In fact, according to reports, he was one of the first people to see the PM on his return to Downing Street after the end of his NHS app pinged isolation in Chequers. The government also needs the courts on its side, and plenty of judges find themselves plastered across the press for doling out light sentences, especially where the perpetrator can get away with saying they didn't know it was a crime to do whatever they did in the UK, because they'd only just got here. And whenever the stiffer sentences are meted out, so Boris might find the judges digging out their copy of the European Convention on Human Rights at every opportunity. And the government also needs to have the public on its side. And the Telegraph has just put out the results of a survey of 1,500 people it did today, showing that support for these measures is low, even amongst that readership. 19% thought these measures would work. 34% said more must be done, and 47% said it was merely a gimmick. And I'll throw this out there. For most people, the system is there to make the punishment fit the crime, whatever that punishment might be. But the more civilised a society thinks it is, the less likely it seems that punishment will occur in any real sense of the word, especially when that civilised society is broke and cannot afford to incarcerate the worst for lengthy periods. And even more especially when you have international organisations like the United Nations who are more than happy to ignore the human rights abuses in China, Iran and Saudi while targeting the likes of the UK for criticism because we're such a soft target. I remember talking to an old and bold former police sergeant a few years ago who told me that if there's a crime problem, build more prisons and fill them up, and keep doing it until the message gets through. Harsh, but probably fair. Now, before I get to the next item, I just want to say a massive thank you to all my Patreon and PayPal supporters, as well as those that do buy a mug with my mug on it. Link in the descriptions box below. You really do help me keep this channel going. Now, in a completely unconnected issue, the Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove has called vaccine refuseniks selfish and said they are putting other people's lives in danger. Talking to reporters today, he said, "Ultimately, if you can be vaccinated and you refuse to, that is a selfish act. You're putting other people's health and lives at risk. You should get vaccinated." And he went on to say that the case for a vaccine passport is a strong one, and that he would like to see it used across the UK to install greater confidence that big events are not likely to be super spreader events. And this comes on the day we're told that the nightclub Vax Pass was rammed through Cabinet. So let's hope a lack of the double jibby-jabby or a lack of Vax Pass won't soon become a form of antisocial behaviour. So what's your opinion on Boris's crime crackdown? Please like and comment below.